want to tell you was the words you whispered me, the very things you said, the very things you said.
Luke chapter 8, verses 40 to 56. Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue. And falling at Jesus' feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying. As Jesus went, the people pressed around him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowds surround you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher any more." But Jesus, on hearing this, answered him, "Do not fear, only believe, and she will be well." And when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him except Peter and John and James, and the father and mother of the child. And all were weeping and mourning for her. But he said, "Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, "Child, arise." And her spirit returned, and she got up at once. And he directed that something should be given her to eat. And her parents were amazed, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened.
Do not fear. Fear has incredible power. Fear can reduce the strongest, most competent people to quivering wrecks. There is fear running through our society at present. The fear of contracting a virus, the fear of passing a virus on, the fear of complications, the fear of losing a loved one, the fear of the NHS being overwhelmed, the fear of losing employment due to lockdown, the fears that come with financial struggles, the fear for the national economy, the fear of social isolation and distancing going on for too long. Fear. Fear, it's a dark emotion, capturing us, owning us, robbing joy from our lives. In the face of this fear, where will we turn? Where will you turn? A fear has been a thread that has been woven in the last few accounts that we've been going through in Luke's Gospel. The disciples feared the storm. "Master, we are perishing." The fear of the wild man that roamed among the tombs was evident amongst the townfolk. Today, a father faces his worst fear. But there's another thread weaving alongside. It's weaving alongside very closely to the other one, but it dominates, it trumps it, it wins. The second thread is Jesus and his superior power and authority. The same disciples who feared the storm at the end of that account, once Jesus calms the storm with his voice, are afraid in his presence. Who then is this? The villagers, used to the wild man, now see him, clothed, sat in his right mind, and they are struck with fear. So struck with fear that they ask Jesus to leave. The woman in today's account trembles. She trembles fearfully, having experienced the saving power of Jesus in her own life. What we're seeing is our biggest fears, our greatest fears being faced head on. They're being confronted, they're being dealt with. They're outside of other people's power, but they're not outside of Christ's power. Natural power is being rebuked. The darkness is being repelled. Today we look at death and disease. What can Jesus do in the face of these? The long wait is over. Right at the beginning of our passage we read, when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. In a sense, it's incidental. It's just what happened before our story really begins to gather pace. But there's another sense in which it's particularly important. We noticed last time that the villagers sent Jesus away. Those who should have had banners up banished him. He had wonderfully restored one of their most disturbed men. But they asked him to leave. Now, as Jesus returns, this crowd welcomes him. One group of people pushing him away, and another group enthusiastically receiving him. Luke wants us, me and you, to think about our response. How do we respond to Jesus? What place does he have in our lives? Are we pushing him away? Or are we waiting and welcoming him? Are we pushing Jesus away as a fearful meddler, as someone we don't want in our lives? Or is he the one that we've been waiting for, the one who can face our fears? The wait is not just over for the crowd. There is someone in this crowd who's had a much longer and more difficult wait. The woman has had a serious health condition for 12 years. Luke tells us it's been an expensive wait too. She's paid a number of doctors to cure her with no success. Well, this lady is in the crowd. She's part of the crowd waiting, part of the crowd welcoming Jesus. She's hidden from view at the minute, and that's just how she likes it. That's just where she wants to be, hidden. In time, she will have to come forward. But before we meet her, we meet a man named Jairus. We are told he's the ruler in the local synagogue. He comes to Jesus and falls at his feet, imploring Jesus. His daughter, Luke tells us his only daughter, is sick and dying. Some passages of the Bible that we read can feel a million miles away from our lives, from what's going on in our world today. It can be difficult to apply them to our own situation. This isn't one of them, is it? This one is easy to apply. This is today, isn't it? This couldn't be more relevant. A father fearful for a daughter who is sick and dying. For many daughters, as they grow up, their fathers are strong and capable men. If they fear something, they go to them, they run to them. How scary for a child when dad can't fix it. And this dad, can't fix it. Being unable to fix it, he goes to one who he hopes, who he trusts can fix it. And he falls at his feet, imploring Jesus to help him. All he has to do is wait. It must have felt like a long wait. But all he has to do is wait until Jesus gets to his home. And it's that wait which is delayed by the woman that we mentioned earlier. And notice she's unnamed. That's in contrast to Jairus. Jairus, we've heard his name. We've heard that he's a synagogue ruler. But this woman is simply a woman in the crowd. And notice his public position. And notice how hidden she is. In fact, with her condition, she shouldn't be mixing in public. He's notable for being a leader, of having a public religious office. She's only notable for being broken and unfixable. Jairus was public and direct in his approach as he reached out for Christ. She's hidden and secretive as she reaches out for Christ. We need to watch how Jesus deals with these two very different individuals. She reaches out and touches Jesus' garment. Jesus calls this action faith. Her faith is clearly well placed because she experiences immediate response, a free response. She has waited years, and yet she's healed in a moment of touching him. She's spent a fortune, and here she is, healthy, fit, and well, for free. Her long wait is over. But then it begins to unravel. Jesus stops and asks, "Who was it that touched me?" Clearly there are so many people touching him. The crowd, Luke tells us, is pressing in on him. But Jesus knows that power has left him. No doubt he knows where the power has left him too. No doubt he knows also that it went directly to her. He knows who's benefited from that power. And so the question isn't for his own benefit, but for her benefit. Not that he would have information, but that she would know more of him. He doesn't want her to drift back into that crowd, not knowing clearly what had happened. The healed woman comes out of her anonymity in the crowd, into the public glare before everyone and before Jesus. Luke tells us that she is trembling before him. What power this man must have. I've been healed instantly just from reaching out. And she explains all that she did and tells Jesus and the crowd. Jesus replies to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." Your faith has healed you. Not magic. No, there was something vital, something real mixed in, and that was your faith. The faith you couldn't do it on your own. A faith that you misplaced in others. A faith is an open hand, grabbing, grasping, receiving. And the object of her faith was Jesus. She could have grabbed 1,000 other cloaks or garments, and nothing would have happened in an instant, in a moment. She would have remained sick. But grabbing him, now the long wait was over. He grants her peace. What does that mean? To experience a wholeness from the hand of God. To be healed, but also to have the relationship with God, the connection with God that we were designed for, restored and remade. We sometimes speak of healthy body, healthy mind, healthy soul. It's that type of thing, a holistic picture, a full picture of human experience. And that's what Jesus is granting her. Go in peace. Go fixed. Go whole. Go healed. Her long wait is over. But dealing with her, Jesus has caused great delay. He's caused Jairus to wait. How long that wait must have seemed. And the delay has proved fatal. Fear and faith. A father's worst fears have been realized. While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." No doubt dread and despair entered Jairus' heart. He was desperate at the beginning, falling at Jesus' feet, but now he's emptied of even that. Jesus, it seems, senses his fear and says the most extraordinary thing to this grieving father. do not fear. Only believe, and she will be well. Who says such a thing to a father who's just lost his only daughter? Who would dare to speak words like that to someone in such pain? Death has its claws, its dirty, grubby claws into his daughter. Surely it's all over. But Jesus is claiming he can free even her. And Jesus is saying he can make her well, can restore her, can resurrect her to life. In this moment of fear, he is encouraged, he is exhorted, he is told to have faith, to believe, to trust. Jesus is saying, in this moment, when it seems like your greatest fears have come true, right now, in this moment, believe in me. Not when it's all over, not when it's happily ever after, not when your daughter is restored into your arms and you can hold her once more and speak to her again. No. In the face of your fear, believe. He has been given, hasn't he, Jairus, the wisdom of the world. The man who comes to him with the news says, do not trouble the teacher anymore. It's too late. It's all over. No need to bother Jesus anymore. She's gone. Not even he can bring her back. And now he has the voice of Jesus countering that worldly wisdom. Do not fear. Only believe, and she will be well. Jesus gets to the house. He dismisses the crowd. Only a very select few of his disciples and the child's parents are allowed in. He's keeping a lid on all that he's doing. Those weeping and mourning are told, do not weep. She's not dead, but sleeping. We're about to see, for Jesus, with the power that he possesses, the power at his disposal, what God has granted him to do in this world. Death is a barrier comparable to sleep. They laugh. They mock his foolishness. Soon their mockery, their cynical derision will turn to joyful delight. He will change it. He will change everything about this day. But how? How will he do it? He rebuked a storm. He told it off. He put it in his place. He commanded the demons to come out of Legion. What will he do to fight death? How will he do that? How will his power be dispensed against death's strong grip? By taking the child by her hand and calling her, saying, "Child, arise." And that was it. From death to life. She was back. She took some food to eat. She spoke with her parents. What astonishing power. And yet what tender gentleness Christ displays. Here is one we can trust. Here is one we can believe in, put our faith in. That's the lesson of this text. Jairus was no fool. In following Jesus to his daughter's deathbed, he was no fool in casting out fear and placing faith in Jesus. Well, that's an incredible account of power. But what about our fears? What about our fears collectively as we face COVID-19 together? What can Christ do in the face of that? What about this situation that we're in right now? Does this ancient passage really change any of it? Where is Jesus now? What's he doing about infection and disease spreading across the world? This is where my fears are now. How will faith in him protect me from them? Even in this account that we've looked at today, there are hints of a bigger picture, of a greater problem, of a more glorious salvation. When Jesus calls the woman out of the safety of the crowd, she was happy hidden, but he wants to bring her out. He does so to make clear to her her faith. She wasn't healed by a magic touch. She was healed because she reached out towards Jesus. The healing wasn't the end of the matter. If healing her, if fixing her broken body was the best thing that Jesus could do, he might as well have left her in the crowd. Fixed, healed. She would have had all that he could give her. But no, Jesus wants to grant her peace. Jesus calls her out. Makes sure she knows that it was her faith in him as healer, as fixer, as saviour that has brought her peace. Jesus wants more for her than a restored body, but a way for her to relate to God, her creator, to know peace with him. It goes beyond disease. That problem took her to Jesus. Her medical need, her health need took her to him, but he takes her further. He takes her deeper. And that's not the only hint. If the greatest thing Jesus can do for Jairus is bring his daughter back to life, then why the need to check his heart? Why the need to tell him, do not fear, only believe? Why not just go to the house, heal the child, and put it back in her father's arms? Because there's a greater, deeper, lasting need to believe in Jesus. In the Bible, belief, faith, trust, words like that are used to link us as recipients to the salvation, the rescue that Jesus has achieved. He won it on the cross of Calvary and in his glorious resurrection, and he gives it to us freely. We receive it by faith, by believing in him, by trusting in him. These are words that talk about our reception of all that he has done. That makes those achievements ours as we receive them from him. The salvation that Jesus offers is greater than all that we have seen. It's a greater salvation that we read of earlier, as we read of Christ's power to save from the storm. It's a greater salvation as we read last week as Christ's power to save from the powers of darkness. We have read of his power today to save from death and disease, and this salvation is greater than that. You see, there's one more thing that even in these wonderful accounts that we've gone through, Christ has not yet overcome, and that's sin. As hard as it may be, believing that there is something worse than coronavirus, a greater, darker, deeper threat, there is something worse. There's something worse than death. We can face death without what this woman had, peace with God. And that means meeting God after we die and giving an account of a life without him, a life that has ignored him, a life that has excluded him. Sin, this rebellion against God, is in each and every one of us. It's our common human condition. And Jesus, as we've seen from all of these accounts, has power to save. Luke continues to tell the story as Christ begins to approach Jerusalem. Today is Palm Sunday, the day we remember Jesus entering Jerusalem. But it only took a week for that rapturous welcome of support to turn into chants of crucify him. On the cross, Jesus was bearing the consequence of human rebellion, paying the price of our debt. By trusting him, having faith in him, we can receive forgiveness. The work he did on the cross is then applied to us, given to us. Won't you come? Do not fear, only believe. Are you one of Jesus' people? Do you belong to him? Do not fear. The salvation he has won for you is secure. His hands are strong. And he holds that salvation firmly and securely for you. They're not just strong hands. As we saw with the girl, his hands are gentle and kind. It was his voice that called you to life, that will one day call you home. Do not fear, only believe. If you have questions or you'd like to know more about Jesus, then please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch with me by email, or you can use any of the church's social media accounts. We'd love to hear from you. We'd particularly like to hear from you if you live in a local area, if you live in this fine city of Cardiff, if you live particularly in Cardiff Bay, Bute Town or Grangetown. If you're in need of practical support or help, then please let us know. If you'd just like someone to talk to while you're isolated and cut off from people that you love, then we'd love to help out. If you'd like to know more about Jesus, then please get in touch.
I want to tell you was the words you whispered me, the very things you said, the very things you said.